It began in Newcastle-on-Tyne, England. A man named Richard Hudson and his wife Elizabeth gave birth to their second son. When this son was 7 years old, Richard and his family left England to find prosperity in the New World. He settled in Ionia to work for C.R. Mabley, who gave his fellow immigrant the chance to embrace this new home, the United States. Richard bought interest in the Ionia store and proudly renamed it R. Hudson & Son. The son was Joseph Lothian Hudson, and this is his story. This is for the people who left their homeland without looking back. This is for the people who joined together to pursue the American dream. This is for the people who laid the foundation of who we are today. This is for you, the heart of Hudson's. This is the history of Hudson's. The year is 1865. The Civil War has just ended. R. Hudson & Son flourishes from the start under the aggressive direction of 19-year-old Joseph Hudson. Then a series of events change his life forever. His father dies. The panic of 1873 hits, and the business has to yield to bankruptcy. Settlement of his debts is made at 60 cents on the dollar, and business reopens. Yet he is not satisfied to simply comply with the legal terms of the settlement. To him, there is still 40 cents on the dollar to be paid. He compiles a list of every creditor and promises to pay them back in full as soon as he is able. For now, he must move on. He leaves his brother in charge of the Ionia store and moves to Detroit, the largest city in the state, to work for C.R. Mabley, the leading downtown merchant. While Mabley vacations in Europe, Joseph makes changes to suit his ideas. Business booms. He is made manager. But already Hudson has a dream. He wants a store of his very own. The store of Newcomb, Endicott & Company vacates the old Detroit Opera House. And with money saved from managing Mabley's store, Hudson moves into the building with grand plans and great expectations. On April 2nd, 1881, J.L. Hudson Clothier, a men's and boys' haberdashery, opens its doors to the public. It is a spectacular opening and a resounding success. And with this success, he keeps his promise. He contacts each and every creditor that had to settle for 60 cents on the dollar and pays them back in full with compound interest. This act makes business history and gives Hudson an unlimited letter of credit for the rest of his life. And from this moment on, honesty, integrity, and perseverance become synonymous with the name Hudson. To celebrate the store's first anniversary, Hudson uses full-page newspaper advertising. He pioneers a new practice of marking the prices on all goods. The old practice was to mark goods in a code that customers could not read. But these customers are important to Hudson. They too have come to find prosperity in this new world. Hudson throws himself into this enterprise with vigor and enthusiasm. He merchandises aggressively. Business is good, and so is his competition. Hudson needs more room to carry more goods for his customers. He moves to a new building on Woodward Avenue in 1885. 6 years later, he builds an 8-story building at the corner of Farmer and Gratiot and changes from a clothing store to a department store. On opening day, September 17, 1891, Hudson's nephew, Richard Weber, then 12 years old, holds the key that opens the doors of the new store. And what a store it is. This is the first J.L. Hudson store to use electric lights, replacing the carbon smell of the gas lights of the past. By this time, Hudson's has stores in Toledo, Cleveland, and Sandusky, Ohio, Grand Rapids, Michigan, St. Louis, Missouri, Buffalo, New York, and St. Paul, Minnesota. But this Detroit store is the largest. It is called the Big Store, being the second tallest building in the city. And the city of Detroit is really beginning to boom. The population reaches 200,000 as people emigrate to find work along the manufacturing shores of the Detroit River. Detroit becomes a rich melting pot of immigrants, from as close as the American South and as far away as Europe. It becomes the 15th largest city in the nation. Electric trolleys replace horse-drawn streetcars. After all, it is the gay 90s. But not for long. Depression hits during the Panic of 1896. Banks close. Every community and individual is affected. Even though Hudson is an inactive director of the Third National Bank of Detroit, he pledges $265,000 of his own money to make certain each depositor receives every cent due him. He even manages to finance a new front entrance to his church. During these hard times, Hudson trims his operating budget and reduces his salary to that of a delivery wagon driver. Still, he is forced to ask his suppliers for an extension of credit. The creditors recall Hudson's earlier repayment of the Ionia store's suppliers in full. They send telegrams assuring him they will wait for their money. Having laid the foundation for a strong, solid reputation of integrity, this self-proclaimed bachelor begins his plans to pass on the business to his sister's children. In 1898, Hudson brings the first nephew, 19-year-old Richard Weber, into the business. 5 years later, Richard's brothers, Oscar, and the twins, Joseph and James Weber, join the store, and Hudson begins to polish these young men into great merchants. In 1909, Hudson's niece Louise comes to him for guidance. Her husband, R.B. Jackson, wants to start an automobile company. Hudson backs Jackson and other investors who establish the Hudson Motor Car Company. Sitting in one of the first models made, his family pride is apparent. The Hudson turns heads with its innovative styling of longer, rounded edges instead of the boxy looks of the other automobiles. After a decade of internship under the direction of Hudson, Richard Weber is named vice president of the J.L. Hudson Company in 1911. Stimulated by rising sales and by Detroit's rapid population growth, Hudson builds a 10-story addition on Woodward Avenue. Inside, Hudson responds to the customers' shopping wishes and displays merchandise in glass front fixtures instead of in boxes. Confident of the way his nephews are taking to the business, Hudson takes a holiday to England, his very first trip back since he was a boy of 7. While in England, he falls ill. Joseph Lothian Hudson dies from pneumonia July 5, 1912, at the age of 66. Detroit and the world feels an irreplaceable loss. Everyone has a story and a kind word to say about Hudson. His honesty and fairness had made retailing history. Editorials written at the time of his death credit Hudson with having been an important factor in raising the ethical standards of the business world. And his contributions to the community leave a mark upon Detroit. He had given thousands of dollars to charity. He had provided the site where the Michigan State Fair still stands. He was instrumental in blazing the trail for the modern-day United Way, in the development of the YMCA, the Detroit Institute of Arts, and he served as president of the board of directors of Harper Hospital. He believed a businessman owed a percentage of his earnings to the community in which he lived. He was a humanitarian of rare quality and perhaps Detroit's foremost philanthropist. And as Hudson had passed along the business to his nephews, he also instilled upon them his beliefs and traditions. His nephews, Richard, Oscar, Joseph, and James Weber, assume management of the store and begin to carry on the dream. And pursuing a dream of his own, Henry Ford makes manufacturing history by offering workers $5 a day, doubling the minimum wage. Thousands come to Detroit in search of work, bringing the city's population to over 1 million. To meet this growth, the Webers add another 10-story addition to Woodward Avenue and replace the horse-drawn carriage delivery system with a fleet of modern motor trucks. As customers begin to shop more competitively, Oscar Weber reinvents the basement store. What was once considered a place for buyers' mistakes, it becomes a store within a store with over 20 departments of value-priced merchandise. The year is 1914. While everyone is dancing the tango and turkey trot, the summer brings World War I to Europe. Detroit factories begin manufacturing munitions. Jobless men go to work and have money to spend. Hudson's sales are up. The Hudson family becomes an integral part of the community of Detroit. And in 1915, Hudson's niece, Eleanor, marries Henry Ford's only son, Edsel Ford. And the two family dynasties come together. To build upon the Hudson retail dynasty, the Weber brothers join with a group of department stores, including Dayton's of Minneapolis, to share ideas and information, and form the Retail Research Association in 1916. 2 years later, the association forms the country's first cooperative buying group, Associated Merchandising Corporation, or AMC. And again, they begin to build another 10-story addition on Woodward. They build a more efficient workplace with a series of air-propelled tubes that eliminate the need for messengers running throughout the store carrying cash and paperwork. They design a credit system, and charge coins are introduced. Carried on a keychain, a letter and number identification allows customers to purchase without having to carry large sums of money. The amount is recorded and paid later, much like the credit cards of today. Soon, Hudson's has over 25,000 charge customers. June 1919. The war is over. Detroit's downtown intersection of Woodward and Michigan is officially recognized as one of the busiest in the world, as more than 16,000 automobiles and more than 500,000 people pass this location each day. Detroit continues to grow, and growing with Detroit becomes the store's theme. Women's hemlines begin to go to new heights, and in come the Roaring Twenties. And the Webers need more space. The building which divides the Woodward Avenue frontage is acquired, demolished, and a 10-story building is built connecting the other additions. That year, To salute America's veterans, Hudson's displays the world's largest flag, 90 by 105 feet, on Armistice Day, 1923. Half of the Farmer Building is replaced with a 16-story building. 3 basements are added. And carrying on the tradition of community service, the Webbers celebrate the children of Detroit. The Santa Claus Parade is presented by Hudson's for the very first time on Thanksgiving Day, 1925. Thousands line Woodward Avenue to watch floats, listen to bands, and meet the real Santa. The second half of the Farmer Building is replaced by a 16-story unit. Hudson's then acquires the competing store of Newcomb Endicott. The building is raised, and a 16-story structure with a 24-story tower is built. This nearly doubles the size of the store that now takes up almost the entire city block. It seems that good times are here to stay. October 1929. The stock market crashes, forecasting a decade-long depression. People's entire life savings are lost. Poverty becomes widespread. As a major manufacturing hub, no city in the country is hit harder by the Great Depression than Detroit. Hudson's sales drop. The Weber brothers sell the last out-of-town Hudson stores and refocus their attention on the downtown customer. The magic that Oscar Weber created in 1913 with the basement store's value pricing keeps Hudson's going strong during these difficult times and becomes the largest in the world in yearly business volume. For the community, the Weber Foundation is formed to distribute millions of dollars for the improvement of life in Detroit. Detroit and all of America is looking towards a brighter future. And the World of Tomorrow is the theme for the 1939 New York World's Fair. Hudson's proudly participates by displaying Old Glory and the dream those stars and stripes represent. December 7th, 1941. President Roosevelt announces that the Japanese have attacked Pearl Harbor. Detroit responds with such fervor, it becomes known as the Arsenal of Democracy. Almost overnight, the city's automobile factories are converted into wartime production of tanks and airplanes. Thousands of women enter the workforce to aid in the effort. And as the war effort is fought by Detroiters during the day, Detroit's nightclub audiences become nationally recognized for their appreciation of big bands, jazz, and blues. 1945. The war ends. Detroiters, returning from war, are ready to rebuild their lives, to pursue the American dream. They want to build families, build for the future. They want more and more merchandise, and the Webbers respond. They complete the entire block area structure with a 12-story addition on the corner of Gratiot and Woodward. And now, Hudson's is a world of its own. Here, on 25 stories and 49 acres of selling floor, Detroiters can examine over 500,000 items and find everything from aspirin to fur coats to zippers. There are 4 basements, 51 passenger elevators, 17 freight elevators, a hospital, 5 restaurants, a state-of-the-art phone switchboard second only to that of the Pentagon, and the store sets a world record with 706 fitting rooms. A 12th floor auditorium is completed, designed to begin a new tradition of staging spectacular special events. The Webbers have a bigger store, more customers, more business. post-war boom is in full swing, and Detroit is leading the way. This city that builds the cars builds new roads for these cars, and the move begins. It is a city on the forefront of a new lifestyle. In the visionary tradition of J.L. Hudson himself, the Weber brothers foresee this evolutionary movement and respond. With the economy on their side, the Weber brothers purchase a large parcel of land in the suburban township of Southfield and surprise the retail world by inventing and developing the country's first regional shopping mall in 1954. They name it Northland, and where once stood an empty field, now stands 108 specialty shops surrounding the Hudson's anchor store. Its success spurs the development of Eastland 3 years later. The name Hudson's is now synonymous with metropolitan Detroit, and to celebrate the unity between Hudson's and the community, Hudson sponsors the first 4th of July fireworks at the International Freedom Festival. After graduating from Yale University and working 8 years within the company, Joseph L. Hudson Jr., grandnephew of the founder, makes retail history by becoming the youngest president and chief executive officer of any department store in the country. The year is 1961. Joe Hudson Jr. is just 29. Aggressively, he begins to enlarge Hudson's share of a competitor-crowded market with a strong emphasis on fashion leadership and prestige-building activities at the downtown store, and plans more branch stores to cover the whole Detroit area. In 1965, Westland opens. Pontiac and Oakland Mall follow. And while young Hudson's dream is going strong, the music of Detroit is on the lips of the entire world as young Berry Gordy follows his very own dream and establishes Motown Records. In a friendship that began over 50 years earlier, the J.L. Hudson Company merges with the Dayton Corporation of Minneapolis to create a new company, the Dayton-Hudson Corporation, in 1969. The corporation supports Hudson's plan of rapid expansion, and the decade of the 70s starts with explosive growth. Each store is designed to meet the ever-changing needs of the customers. The suburban stores prosper. Customers continue to enjoy the multifaceted shopping environment with several major anchor stores, a variety of specialty shops, and nearby free parking. The downtown shopping environment is becoming less and less the point of destination for many customers who now live and work in the suburbs. Hudson responds with an idea of building a new Hudson store in a downtown mall. His vision receives full support from the Dayton-Hudson Corporation and many civic leaders. Together, they put forth a plan for creating a viable and exciting retail environment, the proposed Cadillac Mall project. Despite their best efforts, this time the economy is against them. The decades of the 60s and 70s had brought with them great winds of change. And as the decade of the 80s begins, many changes take place. In 1982, Hudson announces his retirement to seek new business opportunities and leaves behind an impressive legacy. He had led Hudson's through 2 decades, in which it grew from a privately held company operating 5 stores in Detroit to an 18-store regional chain, generating annual sales of almost $1 billion. But the economy of this new decade has seen better days. The customer has more choices than ever as specialty stores go after the traditional department stores business. And these years have seen one of the toughest times to date for the downtown retail economy. To ensure the continued health of Hudson's, the decision is made to cease retail operations of the downtown store. In 1984, recognizing the strength and opportunity available with their longtime colleague, all administrative activities combined with Dayton's of Minneapolis, forming one of the largest department store divisions in the United States. The continuing success of Hudson's comes from the dedication of each individual store and the rich traditions of its past. Hudson's fashion leadership is at the forefront of its markets, and the annual Fash Bash is the premier fashion event in Detroit. A commitment to the community is a promise to every community Hudson serves. And with that commitment comes excitement. With the 4th of July fireworks, the largest pyrotechnics display in North America. With the Detroit Grand Prix, bringing an international flavor to the Motor City. And with the Northland Auditorium and the magic of Cinderella. And in keeping with the pioneering tradition, Hudson's will expand into the growing community of Traverse City, Michigan in 1992. Through all the decades and the many changes, one thing has not changed: the people. From 4 employees in 1881 to over 10,000 Hudsonians today, the people are the very spirit and heart of Hudson's. They move the company forward. They make the company strong. In 1990, the Dayton-Hudson Corporation purchases Chicago-based Marshall Fields, enhancing each company's leadership position in their markets. The addition is a great strategic fit. Joseph Lothian Hudson had a dream. He built upon this dream with honesty, integrity, and perseverance. He adjusted to the ever-changing world while keeping his strong traditions intact. Through his visionary spirit, his dream became reality, and his company gave thousands of people the opportunity to pursue their very own dreams. The company is now Dayton's, Hudson's, and Marshall Fields, focusing on the strengths of the individual institutions and on the similarities of their rich collective pasts. Built upon traditions of customer service, fashion leadership, and a commitment to the community. Today, stronger than ever, the dream continues.